Everybody, my name is Jenny and I'm here with Senior Perspective, and today we're taking some information from McKelty's Patreon and expanding on it. Cody has claimed in interviews and the book that his goal as a plural husband is to treat all of the wives fairly and meet all of their needs. Yet, did that happen with the honeymoons? Let's talk about it. All right, we're going to talk honeymoon right now. We're going to start off with Mary, and I'm going to reference back to their book. This is a section that Mary wrote. Mary explains that after they got married, she got sick, and she feels like all the stress and pressure leading up to the wedding is what made her system break down. So she kind of spent 3 days in bed at home recovering right after the marriage, and then they started off on their honeymoon. And this is what happened next. Our honeymoon was a typical Cody Brown style trip. Everything was spontaneous and unplanned. We were just so excited to be married and to be traveling with each other for company. The next day, we made it to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Rock on! Yeah! This was our official honeymoon destination. I'm sure that's listed in the top 10 of honeymoon destinations in America. What I do know is their courtship lasted 4 months after they were officially engaged. And they had known each other and been in the same sort of friend circle for a while prior to that. And in all this time, somehow, Cody didn't take the time to plan a honeymoon. Nor did Mary, in fairness. Road trip. But they did have a final destination, and that was Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I think for people who might live in New York City or Washington, D.C., or maybe even Miami, going to Jackson Hole, Wyoming might just be thrilling for a honeymoon. Very different, lots of nature, outdoors. But Cody and Mary were already living in Utah and had done numerous trips to Wyoming to Cody's farm. Youth group trips would stay there. Groups of friends would go and stay for the weekend. So it's kind of like being raised in San Diego and going to Los Angeles for your honeymoon. Actually, there might be a lot more differences between those two cities than the small town in Utah where they lived and their honeymoon in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. But let's go on. Let's talk about Janelle's honeymoon. Okay, so Cody and Janelle's story is a little bit different because Janelle was married to Mary's brother. Now, he left the home 6 months after their marriage. And it seems like, reading between the lines, that Janelle actually stayed in more contact with Mary's parents and family than the brother did. The brother wasn't as involved in the faith or the church, and we don't really hear much about him. But we do know that Janelle stayed friends with Mary's family. In fact, when Mary and Cody got married, Janelle and Mary's brother were both there. Again, the timelines in the book are just like TLC timelines. Trying to figure everything out exactly is hard to say. Every now and then a date or a number of months is thrown out, but not all the time. So it's unclear to me if Janelle and Mary's brother were separated at the time or actually divorced. So they knew of each other and were in circles with each other for a while. So 3 years after the marriage of Cody and Mary, Cody goes and marries Janelle. Let's talk a little bit about how Cody describes her honeymoon. Then we went on our honeymoon. We had no plan. We just drove and drove, staying wherever we felt like stopping. It's the end of his section. That's all he said. Poor Janelle. That's all I wrote about the honeymoon. This man is the epitome of romance. So we went from Cody, who was in love with Mary, choosing a road trip to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, to 3 years later, just got in the car and drove and stopped when they needed to. I don't understand how this is any more romantic or special than just being, well, I guess he couldn't be at home because Mary was there. All right, I take that back. At least it was only the two of them. And then we get to Christine. Let's see what Cody says about Christine's. Well, leading up to it, here we have, this is Cody speaking. I worked right up until the day we got married. I even had a hard time getting off work to attend my own wedding. I call BS. There is no person, no matter how horrible of a boss they are, that is going to refuse to give you your wedding day off. Signs that Cody really didn't want to get married. And in fact, the book does go on to say that the wedding wasn't great for either one of them. So let's talk about the honeymoon. Cody says, I didn't have time to plan a honeymoon. Well, he never addressed why he didn't plan one for Janelle either. He didn't have time then either? I don't know. Why the wives didn't participate is also odd, but maybe in their faith the man's supposed to handle everything. I'm not sure, but it gets better. Let me read this. Cody says, I didn't have time to plan a honeymoon. In fact, it didn't even occur to me to plan one. He not only didn't have time to plan the honeymoon, didn't even cross his mind that this is something he was going to do the day after he got married. I guess he thought he would just bring her back home to the same house with the two other wives and they'd spend no time together. But it gets even better because not only does he say, I didn't have time to plan a honeymoon. In fact, it didn't even occur to me to plan one. But he adds, no one told me that I should. Oh, he's playing Robyn. No wonder the two of them get along so well. I didn't know. I mean, it's not like I've been married before. Oh, right, yeah. I have done it twice before. No one told me I should. He took the time to write that and reread it and read it back through edits and let it stay in the book. He meant it. Cody writes, after our wedding, Christine and I got in the car and drove to Montana. Fun times. It was a tense trip, and I have to admit that I wasn't my most cheerful self. Christine and I had gone from being buddies to being married. We hadn't had time to get used to each other, and I hadn't prepared myself for the transition of adding a new wife to my family. Christine's perspective of the honeymoon, she writes, I was shaken when Cody showed up at our wedding with that look on his face. He was morose. I was even more devastated when I learned that he hadn't planned a honeymoon. I was hoping that we'd finally have a romantic getaway, something special that told me how thrilled he was to have me in the family. I was young and naive. I had no idea how to tell Cody what I wanted from him. Let me just pause for a second. No, Christine, you were not young and naive. If that's the system in your church, that the man plans it, you should have expected that.
And you deserve it.
And it seems clear, based on the fact that none of the wives planned it, that Cody was supposed to be the one to plan it. She goes on to say, on our honeymoon, a drive through the sticks of Montana. Oh, man. I was struck by the realization that I didn't know Cody very well. Watching him drive with that look on his face made me feel unbearably sad. I realized I had no idea how to express my feelings with him or ask him how to share his with me. Wow. Young and naive. I guess she was young and naive. All right. So Cody plans one honeymoon, road trip, a couple hours away to no place special. Plans for Janelle, nothing. Let's just get in the car and drive. And oh, guess what? Wife number 3, same as wife number 2, you get nothing. I not only didn't plan a trip, or I didn't plan, let's get in the car and just drive. I totally forgot there was going to be a honeymoon. Honey, what? What is this crazy thing you call honeymoon? No emphasis on it whatsoever. Now, one could argue that Cody took the stance of, oh, well, I didn't want each one to get more special or have more time or trump Mary's because I didn't want Mary to be offended. Therefore, I essentially gave everyone the same honeymoon. Road trip! Same thing you do when you're 18 to 24 with a bunch of your friends. Jump in a car and see where you end up. Except this was his honeymoon. It's so sad.
It's pathetic.
It's so pathetic.
Now, in the book, at the end of Robyn's chapter, she doesn't talk about her marriage like the rest of them did. And this is because when we move on and we have additional chapters that each of the wives talk about, Robyn spends a lot of time talking all about her wedding, all about how extravagant and special and lovely it was.
Blah, 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 blah.
And then we get to the honeymoon. Well, here's the first mention of it. And this is Robyn's chapter because in this section, Cody's not speaking. Which makes sense because the whole first half of the book, it was 50% Cody. And the other 50% of the book was divided up by the 4 wives. And yet the book is called Becoming Sister Wives. I mean, it just fits, right? Would you expect anything else? But now it looks like we have just the wives talking. So Robyn's section, the first time the honeymoon is mentioned, is here. Although I would have been happy with the smallest of receptions, the wedding was absolutely lovely. Sometimes I worried that it seemed as if I was getting preferential treatment.
Do you think?
I got the big wedding, followed by a long honeymoon. Did it seem like you were getting preferential treatment? Yeah, a little slow on the uptake. I mean, there's no comparison. I didn't even discuss what the weddings were like, but very, very, very low-key with a few people. That's it. Robyn's, huge extravaganza. Lots of money spent on it. No road trip to Wyoming or Montana. Let's find out why this happened. Robyn writes, however, the honeymoon was both necessary and special to me. I get it now. Robyn needed it. It was necessary for her. Even though she was 3 hours away when they first met, and he kept having weekend-long visits with her away. And then when she moved close to the family, she had her own home, while the 3 wives and all the kids shared another home. So talk about quiet, intimate, alone time that the other wives didn't get in their crazy house. And yet, it was necessary for her to have a longer honeymoon. Does it say anything else? There is a little bit more here. Robyn says, I never asked Cody for a 10-day trip, but he must have had a sixth sense that it was something important for us. He had a sixth sense. That's it. It's not because in the sentence before she said, it was necessary for me to have an extended honeymoon. Yes, Robyn never shared that thought with him and how important and required and necessary it was that she take him away for 10 days. No wife has gone on any vacation for 10 days. And they all got married when there were no kids around, when they could have gone for 10 days. Now, there's 16 kids altogether, including Robyn's, 3 wives, and Cody is choosing to take a trip, probably double of the longest trip he's ever taken with any wife. And she explains, quite frankly, that she needed that because she needed a lot of sex. Okay, let's read her words. Robyn writes, since we believe in remaining chaste before marriage, the honeymoon ushers in a new part of our relationship. Those 10 days were especially important to me because of the hardships that I had been through in my previous marriage. We go again. The implication that she throws out there about Preston, which he and his whole family deny that he did anything ever to her. And there is zero mention of this in the court records, and you know Robyn would have spoken up if it existed. Zero mention in the court records of their divorce that he did anything harmful to her. Yet she likes to take every opportunity to imply that something went awry and imply that he did her wrong in such a way that hurt her. It makes my skin crawl. It makes me really angry. It makes me angry for all the women who truly suffer through situations and they need to get out. She needed to get out of a marriage from a man who couldn't make enough money to support her. And her extravagant spending habits. That's what she needed. She adds, so it was wonderful to have such an extended vacation from the cares of home and the private time to build our relationship. She adds in the next paragraph, I understand now that long my honeymoon. Did they not have an editor? That sentence makes no sense. I understand now that long my honeymoon was somewhat hurtful to my sister wives.
This doesn't make a lick of sense.
That long of a honeymoon? Is that what you meant to say? Or that my long honeymoon? Maybe that's what she meant to say. That's not what it says. I understand now that long my honeymoon was somewhat hurtful to my sister wives who didn't have comparable experiences. She understands that now. So apparently during all of their courting and through all these months of planning the wedding and getting the honeymoon plan, she never once asked the other wives about their honeymoons or asked Cody what he did for the other honeymoons. Don't believe it. Don't believe it for a second. She had to have known, and she has to be either completely ignorant and stupid to not understand that doing this for 10 days would be extremely hurtful to them, since you can't even compare the two, or she's just lying. Either one I could see as a viable option. What do you think? It could go either way. She adds, I found out later when we returned home how upset some of my sister wives were that Cody took a longer honeymoon with me than with them. Oh, not just longer. Exponentially longer. Incredibly longer. Oh my goodness. Not comparable longer. She goes on in the book to indicate that she did know that it would be hurtful, and because of that, she encouraged Cody to call all of his wives often while he was there. Okay, so you did know, but you did it anyway. Selfish. And she goes on to say, I imagined that when I returned from my honeymoon, I'd easily slide into the Brown family. I thought the struggles my sister wives were going through would fade because Cody and I were now married. Well, haven't faded. How long has it been? 15 more years since then? Still haven't faded. Oh my goodness. Robyn is just a mixture of lies and pleading ignorant. She was all the way back since before they were married, all the way up until present day. McKelty was asked in her Patreon about this extended honeymoon, which everybody refers to as an 11-day honeymoon. I think even in the question, it comes up as an 11-day honeymoon, and I've always said 11-day honeymoon because I've always heard 11-day honeymoon. Was she downplaying it in the book? Does anybody know the exact date she went? Was it a 10-day honeymoon, as she said in the book, or was it an 11-day honeymoon? That would be interesting to see if she was lying about that, because you know she knows how many days it was. Was she downplaying it and thinking nobody would catch it? I'd love to know. So McKelty and Tony are watching the wedding episode and commenting on it. And the question comes from somebody through her Patreon that says, it seems like everything started on the wrong foot because of an 11-day honeymoon being too long for plural marriage. And Robyn didn't leave the kids with her sister wives, and it hurt their feelings. McKelty doesn't address the fact that the honeymoon was incredibly long. She goes right to the second half of the question in terms of the other wives being upset that Robyn chose to have her mother watch her kids while she was on the honeymoon and not have them watch it. Now, I will say, personally, doesn't bother me so much because I really do believe that if they were watching the 3 kids, that everybody would pile on for that and say, and on top of it, you dumped 3 more kids on these ladies that now didn't have Cody there to help them out. It would go that way. It's a lose-lose either way. And if I'm thinking about what I would do in that situation, well, I would never be in that situation. So it's hard, but I'm trying. Okay, I'm trying to put myself in that situation. And I would probably have my mom watch them during that time. Just because as you're merging the families together and they're staying together, you would want to be there with your kids during that transition. You wouldn't want 11 days of that happening without you being there if you're a hands-on mom. At least that's how it would be for me. I would be like, oh no, when we first start merging these families, I'm going to want to be there and make sure things go smooth, and I can explain to my kids when things go wrong or things are different. Now it's going to be different and this is why. But that's me. So it really doesn't bother me personally. Now, if the wives expressed being snubbed, I just find it interesting that this conversation wasn't had, that these details weren't reviewed. I would love to know, what did Robyn's kids want during that time? Maybe if Dayton wasn't comfortable with it, Grandma could have watched Dayton and the girls could have stayed there with the girls. The girls may have been more into it, or maybe vice versa. Maybe the girls were a little bit more scared about this. They could have stayed with Grandma and Dayton could have stayed in the apartment with Peyton or in Janelle's apartment with all the other boys. Or maybe because he has Asperger's, she would have been concerned about how he would blend in too. There's that component too to consider, really, that he does have a social anxiety type of disability that would make it different to blend. So I get it. That doesn't bother me so much. I find it very funny that McKelty kind of does a Freudian slip right here. So she starts explaining her answer, but listen to how many days she says the honeymoon is. And then Tony corrects her.
This might be the unpopular opinion, but I think that Robyn wasn't sure if her sister wives would be super comfortable with her just like dumping her kids on them for 3 days. So I think
11 days.
11 days, sorry.
3 days. I think that's how long all the other wives got. I think they were 3 days. I feel like I heard that somewhere before. I feel like in one of their couch interviews or something, it came up, and that the other wives all got 3 days for their honeymoon. I'll kind of look and see if I can find that information and insert it here. But yeah, 3 versus 11. Or as Robyn interprets it, 10. Tony's going to give his 2 cents in here now in terms of looking at their relationships from the point that he's been in the family. He really kind of reiterates from the time he entered the family, people weren't watching each other's kids. But McKelty corrects him and says, yeah, but back then they did. In Lehigh, they were always watching each other's kids. It changed when they were down in Vegas because there were always teenagers in the house. And so there wasn't that need to have the younger ones go to another mom's house because there were always older kids that could watch them. And of course, Cody is supposed to be around every now and then too.
From my outside point of view, I don't think any of that changed throughout the years that I saw.
Yes, that's a good point, because Robyn always had a nanny.
Can you say that again?
Yes, that's a good point, because Robyn always had a nanny.
Even in Vegas, I never saw anyone actually dump their kids on another wife when another mom was out of town.
Okay, so in Vegas, no.
I never saw, and they were lots of them out of town, and I never saw anyone dump their kids on another mom. I always thought it was funny, but yes, in Vegas, I never saw that happen.
In Lehigh, that happened a lot, where Mary would sometimes be gone, and so somebody would get Leon or Janelle. It usually happened more often that Janelle would be gone, because my mom was like part-time work, part-time home, and then Mary was in school and home, but she only had the one child, so it was a little bit easier, and Leon was a little bit older. So every now and then it would happen mainly with Janelle, and my mom would basically like kind of help with Janelle's kids, but Logan really helped with the raising a lot of Janelle's kids.
It's true. The only version I ever saw was that your mom would take them, kind of.
Yeah, and then she was kind of there on call if they needed anything.
But never like the other way. Like I never saw like your mom's kids stay with Janelle ever.
So when mom had a full-time job, and when we lived in Wyoming, Janelle did take us often. But when we moved to Lehigh, mom's working kind of situation changed a lot, so it didn't happen as much. But when we were in Wyoming, Janelle would watch us, and Mary would watch us as well in Wyoming. So it just changed when we moved to Lehigh, and then it changed again when we moved to Vegas. One of the biggest reasons why it changed in Vegas was because Logan was a lot older, And then same thing, Aspen was a lot older. And so a lot of the older kids just watched the younger kids. Like there were a lot of the times where I actually took care of Truly a lot. Like
I don't remember. Yeah.
She kind of thought I was like her mom.
She still does.
She definitely
She
called
still
me mom
does.
several times. So I think part of that is just because there were so many kids, and there were so many kids used to being the ones that were relied upon, that the wives weren't as needed, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think with that stuff, it's really situational with polygamy.
Look, Gail C, I think, says it well. I think that's the idea of the benefits of polygamy, but in practice of what I've seen is that there are too many feelings that get away with these supposed benefits. And I just didn't see some of those happening because there was feelings.
I think that's a good point.
Which is, they're human. They're gonna have feelings. So
they're valid. That's valid.
McKelty does point out that once they were in Vegas, Annie, Christine's mom, was staying with her for a big period of time. Now, we didn't see it a lot on the show, but she was there staying with her. I remember when there was like a scene when she was talking to Cody about having her mom come stay. I don't remember all the details surrounding it, but Grandma was in the house. For Janelle, Logan is the oldest child and obviously the most mature out of all of them, and really handled parenting responsibilities since season 1. Wasn't it episode 1 where we saw Logan making the breakfast for all the kids in the morning because Janelle was already off to work?
Every day I wake up about a half hour earlier than everyone else, make breakfast. I usually don't cook for all 12 children. Mostly I just cook for my part of the family. All right, come on, you gotta eat. You got everything, Gabe? Oh, yes. She's so spoiled. Hi, Jim. You want breakfast for you?
Yes. Yeah.
This is pretty much how it goes.
So definitely by the time they got to Vegas, he was already somewhere in high school. They were only in that house for a half a year, if that, before he graduated from high school. And of course, there's other kids that were older by then as well. And then we have Robyn, who she manages to slide in there under the radar, had a nanny. That's really the red flag right there. That one, I don't get. Oh no, I get it, because she was No, she wasn't working. She was home. I get it, because she didn't have any other sister wives to have. Oh, no, she did have. She had 3 other sister wives. One of them was her bestie. Mary could have watched her kids anytime, and Mary would have loved it. That's a no.
I was thinking that it would be super fun to take Solomon up there with me. I thought it would be fun to just spend a few days with him myself, So I need to run over and ask Robyn and Cody if that's okay.
What's up?
I'm going to Utah, and I wonder if I can take Solomon with me.
He's kind of been weird lately about nighttime.
Well, here's the thing. He's only 4. He's never had a sleepover anywhere yet.
That's not true.
He slept at Mary's once.
He slept at my house when you guys were out of town.
He's just been really weird lately. At night.
Really?
Yeah.
She said no so quickly, like without even thinking about it. It just really surprised me.
Yeah, Robyn had no excuse for needing a nanny, especially in Flagstaff. Older kids were all teenagers or in their 20s, and she still had a nanny, and she still didn't work. She has 2 kids. How is it that I worked 3 jobs and I had 3 kids? Didn't need a nanny. Is she just not capable? I mean, she acts like she's not capable, but is she really not capable? Maybe.
I can't handle it.
I don't know. Maybe she's just a princess.
Where are the children? Nanny.
I do want to slide in here. Tony had a good point. I know there's a lot of Tony haters out there. I'm still riding the fence on Tony. wasn't a fan in the past, appreciate him more in these reflective videos on the seasons, because I feel like he pushes McKelty to get out of her glass half full responses all the time. And I do like how he made a point to say, well, I never really understood. I never saw the wives taking care of the other kids. And isn't that what you say is one of the major points of polygamy? That you're all sharing the responsibilities. You share the needs and the care and the watching and all of the responsibilities of the children together. When a wife is in need and she has to go on a trip or has to go to work, there's other moms to watch her kids. Doesn't make sense. And they all did before Robyn came into the family. And although I agree with her decision, really her choice to have her kids stay with grandma during the honeymoon was the beginning of how the rest of her life was going to be, in that she did not trust her kids with any of the sister wives. It was her mom or her sister as a nanny or the other nanny. And she always lived in a separate house. Has she ever lived polygamy? No, that could be a whole separate video. All right, so our whole video took a turn because the question kind of covered two different things. There's the 11-day honeymoon, and there's the hurt feelings over Robyn choosing to leave her kids with her mom during that honeymoon. Robyn choosing her mom in that situation, I get it. I say she gets a pass for it. Could she have communicated better? Yes. Cody always says she's the best communicator in the family. I haven't seen it yet. I don't know what he sees that none of us see, but okay. She clearly didn't communicate with them why she was doing what she was doing so that they didn't have hurt feelings. All right, but I'm going to let it go. The 11-day honeymoon? Can't wrap my brain around it.
That was wrong.
She's in a plural marriage he has 3 other wives and 13 kids at home. I married a man who had no other wives, no past wives, no children. I didn't get an 11-day honeymoon. The entitlement that she felt that she absolutely needed that and it was required for her relationship blows my mind. Just absolutely blows my mind. I can't believe she stands by that, but she does. Because she's Robyn. And Cody supports it full on because he's Cody. There you go. Summed it up right there. Tell me what you think about both of these situations. Write it down below. I'm interested to hear your point of view too. We will be back on Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to start the middle section of the book. Everybody have a wonderful weekend, and I'll be back next week. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Goodbye.
Goodbye, bye.